the African anthem. Good morning. This is Seth Moore coming to you here again on Anchor by Spotify. We will be back momentarily. Good afternoon again. This is Seth Moore coming to you again here on Anchor by Spotify. Hoping that everyone is well, as we often do, because we want you to be well. Now, again, today we're going to be talking about, we're still talking about the islands. We just finished up a series on the whitening of Afro-Latin America, and we're going to continue with our island talks because we think that it is important. And before we get started, I always do this. Like my buddy in Detroit told me, he said, get in, because that's what I always do with him. We kind of got a little inside joke. We do that. And he says, man, you ought to use that. That's pretty cool. And so we, we kind of go back and forth with that. So when we talk, we make it interesting and we have fun. But I want to start off today by saying, the judgment has begun. And I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this. We have floods, earthquakes, mudslides, tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, tsunamis, torrential rains, hail, you name it. It's going on. So judgment actually has begun. And think about this for a moment. Are you in the place of judgment by the way you live and what you've done? See, because a lot of people, they get it twisted. They get it misconstrued because sometimes, and you guys hear me say this all the time, and people think if they're getting material things, they're blessed. They equate material things with everything. It really goes to show you that, that people are so geared and people are so given over to trickery and not knowing that some things can be a trap. Because some, as we all know, some things can be a curse as much as you want to think they are a blessing. You understand what I'm saying? And especially if your heart is not right, especially if your heart is not right and you're not exuding positive and universal energy as it relates to love and, being right with people and treating people right. You guys hear me say this all the time, and you probably get tired of hearing me say it. He's that dude's corny. He always talking about that. And but I'm going to keep on talking about it too. Okay? So, moving right along. Especially when you are not in the right posture, I would be very careful if things are coming to me and I know my heart is not right. And so you're living out of this deception that, I'm blessed, but you don't treat people right. You don't, your heart is cold. You just don't do right. You know what I'm saying? But for those of you that do, you have nothing to worry about. See, because like I said, if you're standing in the place of judgment, and you need to just get right. You just need to get your heart right. That goes for you preachers who are standing in pulpits, lying to people, taking their money, because judgment is coming to you. Trust me, it's coming to you. Because whatever you plant, that's the kind of harvest you're going to receive. Okay? And so a lot of people say, man, bruh, I don't want to hear that. And you got other people who are walking and say, man, I know my heart is right. those egotistical, pious narcissists, you know what I mean, who just know that they're doing everything right, and with me, I don't think that I'm doing everything right, okay? But if I'm not doing something right, that not doing something right is related to my life. It's not related to how I treat people. So when we talk about those sort of things, you may not be doing something right in terms of you may need to be more active in your life. You may need to pull back some because you may be giving too much. You understand what I mean? So there are people who are doing things like that. You may be a giver. You may be giving too much and you being taken advantage of. And people don't appreciate your time that you're giving or you're giving of your services or your money or your, spending time with people or going to the hospital or going to the nursing home or going to the shelter, and being with people. So, but judgment has begun. Make no mistake about it. We're in that time of judgment now. And like I said, for those who are manipulative and deceiving people, your day is coming. I'm here to tell you, your day is coming. Opportunities that take advantage of people to further their own agenda, your day is coming. Your day is coming. And some of you right now are dealing with it because of the fact that you have been doing that for the longest. And so now you are getting it back. Karma has come to visit you. It's come to visit you. I would not want to be caught in a place like that. See, because with me, my attitude is this. I'm going to tell you straight up. My attitude is this. I can't be bought by money. You know what I'm saying? My integrity is more important. You can't offer me enough money to do something heinous or to do something dishonest. You can't offer me enough money for that because I'm not. And if I do accept something upon a contract and you happen to somehow manipulate or you happen to lie and try to blame me, you will pay. You will pay. You will pay. And I've done with some business with some folks and they've taken thousands of dollars from me, but they're going to pay. They're going to pay. Trust me. And then they had the nerve to try to call me back to do more business. Okay. But anyways, we're going to get into this, and I know you guys are probably saying, oh, he's often talking about, why don't you just come on? Excuse me. Why don't you just come on, man, and be happy and talk about happy stuff? The world ain't a happy place. You find happiness in certain things and maybe a few friends that you have in your circles, and you can find joy out of life in certain areas and certain things that you do. But overall, the world is not a happy place. Don't fool yourself. And I know a lot of people say, well, I find happiness in things I do. And I try to keep happy and I try to do this and I try. Yeah, I understand. But then again, you're living in a fantasy. You're trying to ignore what's actually happening and what's going on. Until sudden destruction comes, and then you're looking around and you say, what happened? So we're going to continue. And I like to point out things that I think that important. And I will celebrate, trust me, I will celebrate things that are being done. I've seen some things about some college graduates who are doing very well, who happen to be African American, and if you want to use that term, and they're doing very well. So we're going to talk about some positive things, trust me. But the world that we're living in now, you have to be cognizant of what is going on. And there's a lot of things that are going on. Okay, there's a lot of things that are going on, around the world. Like I said, judgment has begun, and you're seeing floods and you're seeing hurricanes and exponentially more than you have before. Okay, but this is the thing. Listen to this though. You have this stuff happening all around the world. So tell me, why is it not happening on the continent, with the exception now of something that just happened in Morocco? Okay? And they say it's getting ready to hit Tunisia. Now, these are places, mind you, on the continent that are occupied by invaders. Okay? These are places now that are being occupied by invaders. But you having these things happening all over the world, and they're going to continue to happen in greater numbers and greater devastation. And I don't say that to be, morbid or just try to scare anyone, but it's true. But you don't see this happening in the dark places of the continent. Think about that. Because they have enough problems with Europeans trying to pillage and plunder and rape the land and doing what they do. Okay? And how you see this revolution that's taking place and that's going on the continent and around the world in different places. But a lot of the people that are crying about justice are the people who've meted out injustice. Think about that for a moment. You got a lot of these people crying out against their governments, but it's their governments. It's a lot of their governments who was in on the pillaging and plundering. But now that things are not going right for them, they're crying out against their governments. They're getting what they deserve. Think about that. It's crazy. How are you going to enjoy the benefits of a government that you're living under, who was part and parcel in the rape, pillaging, and plundering and exploitation of another continent? But when devastation comes to your door, you're in the street saying, oh, we want to change the Constitution because our government, you're suffering because of that. And more of it is coming. Trust me. More of it is coming in more devastating ways. And I know when I do these podcasts, a lot of the folks who they're filtering through the information in the podcast you're doing, a lot of them don't like to give, the numbers that are actually there. Because I've seen people playing with the numbers because I'm telling the truth. And people don't like the truth. They don't like the truth. But I'm going to tell the truth. Again, we are listening to Scott Buckley and his orchestra, as we always do. And so we want to give them a shout out, as we always do. So we're going to get into this, and we're just going to tell you and talk about how devastating and how wicked the West has been in terms of what they've done to the planet, and why the planet is crying out, why the planet and the universe is regurgitating all this evil, because what the planet is alive. It's a living organism. Understand that, understand that. The planet and the universe is a living organism, as you are, as we are. So it is regurgitating the poison and the evil that was meted to it. Okay? And we're gonna when we begin this, you'll understand what I'm saying. Okay, now listen up. 5,000 miles west of Los Angeles and 500 miles north of the equator, on a far-flung spit of white coral sand in the Central Pacific, a massive, aging, and weathered concrete dome bobs up and down with the tide. Here in the Marshall Islands, Runit Dome holds more than 3.1 million cubic feet, or 35 Olympic-sized swimming pools, of U.S. produced radioactive soil and debris, including lethal amounts of plutonium. Nowhere else has the United States saddled another country with so much of its nuclear waste, a product of its Cold War atomic testing program. The U.S. now, okay, you with me? Between 1946 and 1958, the United States detonated 67 nuclear bombs in and above the Marshall Islands, vaporizing whole islands, carving craters into its shallow lagoons, and exiling hundreds of people from their homes. U.S. authorities later cleaned up contaminated soil on Inuitak Atoll, where the United States not only detonated the bulk of its weapons tests, but, as the Times have learned, also conducted a dozen biological weapons tests and dumped 130 tons of soil from an irradiated Nevada testing site. It then deposited the atoll's most lethal debris and soil into the dome. And so what they did was, with this dome, they so-called try to cover up, it's a concrete dome, and they so-called try to cover up where the atomic bomb detonated, because, of course, as you heard me read, it left a huge crater, right, on the island. Okay, it left a huge crater, but we haven't gotten to the juicy stuff yet. And so they got, as you heard, all of this sand from the Nevada desert, covered it up and put this big concrete dome over. But as you heard, the dome is bobbing and kind of weaving because of the radioactive material under it, and it's seeping out. It's not holding it in, no matter how much concrete you put over it. Okay? Now the concrete coffin, which locals call the tomb, is at risk of collapsing from rising seas and other effects of climate change. Tides are creeping up its sides, advancing higher every year as distant glaciers melt and ocean waters rise. So now, so when they talk about, listen to this, when they talk about climate change, the ozone layer, emissions in the air and all, it's because of these crazy people. They've changed the whole ecosystem by blowing up these atomic bombs. Destructive, just destructive, man. Just destructive, because you want to be a world power against everybody else. You're detonating atomic bombs in the atmosphere. Just destructive. They got the planet messed up. The planet is messed up because of these people. Officials in the Marshall Islands have lobbied the U.S. government for help, but American officials have declined, saying the dome is on the Marshallese land, and therefore the responsibility is of the Marshallese government. Now, isn't this something? You're gonna detonate a nuclear weapon, and then you're not gonna take accountability and responsibility. You're gonna say it's on the government of these people. But the people were telling you from day one they didn't want that. And you ignored them totally Let us go on, y'all. I'm like, how can it, the dome meaning, be ours? This is what the lady said, Hilda Hine, the president of the Republic of the Marshall Islands, said in an interview in her presidential office in September. We don't want it. We didn't build it. The garbage inside is not ours, it's theirs. Too many in the Republic of the Marshall Islands, Runic Dome is the most visible manifestation of the United States' nuclear legacy, a symbol of the sacrifices the Marshallese made for U.S. security and the broken promises they received in return. They blame the United States and other industrialized countries for global climate change and sea level rise, which threatens to submerge vast swaths of this island nation's 29 low-lying atolls. More than any other place, the Marshall Islands is a victim of the two greatest threats facing humanity: nuclear weapons and climate change, said Michael Gerard, a legal scholar of Columbia University Law School. The United States is entirely responsible for the nuclear testing there, and its emissions have contributed more to climate change than those from any other country, he said, and I quote, end quote. Over the last 15 months, a reporting team from the Los Angeles Times and Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism made 5 trips to the Marshall Islands, where they documented extensive coral bleaching, fish kills, and algae blooms, as well as major disease outbreaks, including the nation's largest recorded epidemic of dengue fever. They interviewed singers who lost their voices to thyroid cancers and spent time in Arkansas, Washington, and Oregon, where tens of thousands of Marshallese have migrated to escape poverty and an uncertain future. The Marshallese leaders acknowledge that America doesn't bear full responsibility for their nation's distress, but they say the United States has failed to take ownership of the environmental catastrophe it left behind, and they claim U.S. authorities have repeatedly deceived them about the magnitude and extent of that devastation. A Times review of thousands of documents and interviews with U.S. and Marshallese officials found that the American government withheld key pieces of information about the dome's contents and its weapons testing programs before the two countries signed a compact in 1986, the U.S. releasing the U.S. government from further liabilities. One example. Before the two countries signed a compact in 1986, releasing the U.S. governments from further liabilities. One example, the United States did not tell the Marshallese that in 1958 it shipped 130 tons of soil from its atomic testing grounds in Nevada to the Marshall Islands. See, they was doing this under the noses of these people, and they didn't really care that they was going to destroy the island and destroy these people, because they were going to do it anyway, just like they did in Hawaii. Just like they came into Hawaii and disposed Hawaii and annexed the Queen, and took over the island there. These people are wicked, man. I mean, they just create havoc since they've been on this planet, bruh. I mean, they're just wicked, man. They destroy the whole planet. You see what I'm saying? And yet they want to get on the media and the news and point at black people. You people are the worst. You have the whole planet in disarray. And you know you do. It is because of your wickedness and your evil why the planet is like it is. And you're gonna pay. You're gonna pay. U.S. Department of Energy. No, let me go up. Okay, let me go up. I missed something, or did I? Okay, U.S. authorities also didn't inform people of Eniwetok, Eniwetok, excuse me, where the waste site is located. They conducted a dozen biological weapons tests in the atoll, including experiments with aerosolized bacteria designed to kill enemy troops. So they was testing all kinds of stuff. Do you hear me? They was just testing away lethal biological weapons on the island where they know these people, and they knew once they did that, these people would not be able to live there again. I mean, you came to a beautiful place and just destroyed these people's whole life. Just destroyed it. Okay, let's just terrible, man. And it says here, and if you look at between the 1950s or the 60s, it'll show you the devastation that was actually done, okay, on these islands. It's terrible, y'all. It's terrible. They have a fact sheet where you can actually go and look up. Okay, so I'm not going to get into all that now, but they have a long list of what they've actually done, and maybe we'll visit that, another time, but we'll move on. But this is terrible. Okay, and it talks about the biological weapons tests that they've done, and they use these aerosolized bacteria designed to kill, enemy troops. Okay, U.S. Department of Energy experts are encouraging the Marshallese to move back to other parts of Eniwetok, where 650 now live after being relocated during the U.S. Nuclear tests during the Cold War. But many Marshallese leaders no longer trust U.S. assurances of safety, and you can't trust them. You can't trust them, because they told the people, and we'll get into that at one point. Oh yeah, you can move back to the island after they did the test, and I'll show you where a lot of the people, they thought it was safe to move back, and this is when I would have never done it. But a lot of the people, they moved them, I think they moved them like 50 miles away to another island. But a lot of these people will still becoming sick. They was having children that was being born deformed. You understand what I mean? A lot of the women had cancer, was getting cancer. Their hair was falling out. Thyroid cancer, all kinds of stuff. It says, we didn't know the runic dome waste dump would crack and leak. We didn't know about climate change, said Jack Adden, a Marshallese senator from Eniwetok Atoll. We weren't nuclear scientists who could independently verify what the U.S. was telling us. We were just island people who desperately wanted to return home. You see what I'm saying? Innocent people. Adding to the alarm is a study published published this year by a team of Columbia University scientists showing levels of radiation in some spots in Iwatak and other parts of the Marshall Islands that rival those found near Chernobyl and Fukushima. It rivals that of Chernobyl. It's 10 times worse than that. Because in one report, it said that they thought they was only detonating between something like 4 and 8 tons of TNT. But it turned out to be double that. Such discoveries could give Marshallese leaders fresh ammunition to challenge the 1986 compact, which is up for renegotiation in 2023, and also to press the United States to honor property and health claims ordered by international tribunals. The tribunals established by the two countries in 1988 concluded that the United States should pay $2.3 billion in claims, but Congress and the U.S. courts have refused. Documents show the U.S. paid just $4 million. Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad? They gave the people of the island just $4 million. And so you're talking about thousands of people. Thousands of people. Terrible. Okay. The U.S. position is that it has already paid more than $600 million for the resettlement, rehabilitation, and radiation-related healthcare costs of communities affected by the nuclear testing, said Karen Stewart, the U.S. ambassador to the Republic of the Marshall Islands. She said inflation brings the number close to $1 billion. They ain't paid them. They didn't pay them people that. Trust me, they didn't. Trust me, they didn't. The United States recognizes the effects of its testing and has accepted and acted on its responsibility to the people of the Republic of the Marshall Islands, Stewart said in a statement. In September, the Marshallese Parliament the Najitila approved a national nuclear strategy which calls for a risk analysis and environmental survey of renewed dome. Okay, an assessment of legal options for its cleanup in a new attempt to secure the $2.3 billion ordered by the tribunal. Last month, Marshall Islands lawmakers called on the international community to reduce greenhouse gases, causing what they declared to be a national climate crisis. China is taking an increasing interest in the Marshall Islands and other Pacific Islands nations, in part because of their strategic location of the Beijing interest in reducing U.S. influence in the region. Those inroads by China have alarmed U.S. leaders, forcing them to pay more attention to the grievances of the Marshallese leaders, such as Hines. Okay, the heightened interest, Hines said, should bode well for us. From the U.S. mainland, it takes more than a day to fly to the Marshall Islands, and only one commercial airline makes the trip. Okay, so now the U.S., of course, they're interested because China is interested in going to the island. Now, maybe China has a solution as far as cleanup goes. Maybe they have come up with some type of radioactive antidote where they can actually put in the atmosphere or in the water that would cause it to clean up, or I don't know. That sounds kind of far-fetched, but who knows? Who knows? People have come up with things, but these radioactive materials and biological uh, elements, man. That stuff is dangerous. It's how do you clean that up? I mean, it's killing the fish. It's changed the whole marine life on the island. You know you can't. I mean, common sense will tell you you can't eat nothing off the island, no fish no more. That's terrible, man. The Island Hopper United Airlines Flight 154 starts at Honolulu, making stops in the Marshall Islands at Majuro and Kwajalein before heading west towards the Micronesian islands of Kosrae, Phonpai, and Chukne, and finally terminating in Guam. The next day, it doubles back. As it approaches Majuro, the blue scape of the ocean is broken by an oblong necklace of white coral beach islands dotted with coconut, pandanus, and breadfruit trees. And you know that was beautiful. But they know how to just mess up something. They know how to poison the world, man. They know how to poison the world, don't they? The Marshall Islands, atolls, are the remnants of ancient volcanoes that once protruded from these Cyrilline seas. They were settled 3,000 years ago by the ancestors of the present-day Marshallese who crossed those oceans on boats from Asia and Polynesia. For American officials in the mid-1940s, this 750,000 square mile expanse of ocean, nearly 5 times larger than the state of California, must have seemed like a near perfect spot to test their growing atomic arsenal. Just reckless and wicked. And mind you, these are dark indigenous people too, because that's what we've been talking about. And all the islanders, all the people on the islands are indigenous people. You know what I'm saying? And it's always these people who have to suffer. And that's why the world is in an uproar right now. You know, because of these people who have gone around the planet, as I often say. And if you can't take stuff from people, if you just can't devastate people, you're not happy. You're not satisfied because you don't know how to deal with people on equal footing. You just don't know how to deal with people ethically, morally, righteously. You don't know nothing about that. You have to have an advantage over the world. You have to have an advantage over people. You don't deal fairly with people. And if you can't have it your way, you're going to destroy it. That's just who they are. If you can't have it your way, you rather destroy it. And for the few good ones who are not like that, God bless you. But really, when does this shit end? Everywhere you go, just total destruction. And this is what's happening in the continent now. It's like, people want their countries back. People want to have a country that's democratized in a way where people can live, where people can eat, where people can go to school, where people have access to medicine, clean water, a decent living. But no, you don't want that. And for all of those puppet presidents and people who do your bidding, I pray the Creator get them too. And He is. He is. I pray. Because, the good book says, suffer the little children to come. And if you harm one of the little children it'd be best that a millstone be tied around your neck and that you be thrown into the sea. And that's what you're doing. You're harming the future of children. And should you pay? Absolutely you should. And I'm not just talking about white folks. It just happens that they wield the most power. And so destruction comes under their watch. Okay. Near G. Joseph, 72, was a witness to the large thermonuclear bomb tested by the United States, the Castle Bravo detonation. That's what it was called, the Castle Bravo detonation. She was 7 years old at the time, living with her family in Rongelap Atoll, 100 miles east of Bikini Atoll, a tropical lagoon commandeered for nuclear testing. Okay, so a lot of you guys don't know that Bikini Atoll, and so that's how they came up with the name Bikini. Okay, and so when the Bikini came out in the 1960s, they got it from this island. Okay, that's how they came up with the name. So now you know. Okay. On March 1, 1954, Joseph recalls waking up and seeing two suns rising over Rongelap. Okay, first there was the usual sun topping the horizon in the east and bringing light and warmth to the tropical lagoon near her home. Then there was another sun rising from the western sky. It lighted up the horizon, shining orange at first, then turning pink, then disappearing as if it had never been there at all. That was a nuclear bomb, y'all. Joseph and the 63 others on the Roanoke had no idea what they had just witnessed. Hours later, the fallout from Castle Bravo rained down like snow on their homes, contaminating their skin, water, and food. Listen to this, y'all. Listen to this. They was there. They was only, what, so far away? As you just heard me read. Wow. Contaminating their skin, water, and food. According to Joseph, the government documents, U.S. authorities came to evacuate the Rongelap 2 days later. By that time, some islanders were beginning to suffer from acute radiation poisoning. Their hair fell out in clumps. Their skin was burnt and they were vomiting. Creator, help us. The Castle Bravo test and others in the Marshall Islands helped the U.S. establish the credibility of its nuclear arsenal as its race against its Cold War adversary, the Soviet Union, to develop new atomic weapons, but the testing came at a horrible price. Joseph and other Marshallese ended up becoming human guinea pigs for U.S. radiation research. 3 years later, after Castle Bravo, U.S. authorities encouraged Joseph, but her family, and her neighbors to return to Rongelap. Remember I told you, I mentioned earlier where they said it was okay for them to go back? 3 years after, after Castle Bravo, U.S. authorities encouraged Joseph, her family, and her neighbors to return. Ain't that something, y'all? They encouraged them to return to the island that they just detonated a nuclear damn bomb. Oh yeah, y'all can go back. It's all right. U.S. government documents from the time show that officials weighed the potential hazard of radiation exposure against the current low morale of the natives and a risk of an onset of indolence. Okay. Ultimately, they decided to go forward with the resettlement so researchers could study the effects of lingering radiation on human beings. They wanted them to go back so they could find out what the effects were. Now, you tell me if that's not wicked, y'all. I want you to go back and breathe this stuff. They ain't gonna go back. No, but they're gonna send the people back. They're not gonna go there. Because of course, when they detonated the nuclear bomb, they were miles and miles away from it, with suits on and goggles and gas mat and whatever. But they want the people to go back so they can find out what the effects are. So I want to sacrifice you so I can find out what you look like. I can look at you and see your eyes falling out, your hair falling out, coughing up blood and coughing up a lung. You know, I mean, just wickedness. Data of this type has never been available. Muriel Eisenberg, a U.S. official with the Atomic Energy Commission, said at a January 1956 meeting of the agency's Biology and Medicine Committee, while it is true that these people do not live the way that Westerners do, civilized people, it is nonetheless also true that they are more like us than the mice. Ain't that some shit? Oh my goodness. Listen to this, y'all. I know you heard me read it, but I want to read it again. While it is true, and I'm quoting, while it is true that these people do not live the way that Westerners do, civilized people, it is nonetheless also true that they are more like us than the mice. Than the mice, y'all. The mice, M-I-C-E. That it is true, they're not like us, the Westerners. No, they're not like you. And you are not civilized, and you never have been. You have a form of civilization, but you are not civilized. Because civilized people don't do this. They said it's more, they're more like us. They're not like the mice. Woo. The resettlement proved catastrophic for the people of Rongelap. Cancer cases, miscarriages, and deformities multiplied. 10 years later, in 1967, 17 of the 19 children who were younger than 10 and on the island the day Bravo exploded had developed thyroid disorders and growths. One child died of leukemia. Wow. In 1985, the people of Rongelap asked Greenpeace to evacuate them again after the United States refused to relocate them or to acknowledge their exposure, according to government documents and new reports from the time. Now, Greenpeace, I used to do some work for Greenpeace. Greenpeace is a organization in D.C. where you go around and you solicit, and it's an organization where they are supposedly trying to make people aware of things like this, and so they'll get money. I don't know how the money is distributed, but they raise a lot of money for things like this, and and disasters and so forth and so on. Okay. My. Okay. Okay, it says Joseph, who had her thyroid removed because of the radiation exposure, has spent nearly 7 decades taking daily thyroid medication, enabling her body to produce hormones it otherwise would not generate. A quiet, dignified woman with thick, wavy gray hair, Joseph lives in a cinder block home in Majuro, the capital, a setting far different from the pristine atoll where she grew up. Composed of 3 low-lying islands connected by one flood-prone road, Majuro is one long and narrow and home to roughly half the population of the Marshall Islands. About 28,000 people taxi crawl the length of this long road, fitting as many riders into their vehicles as they can accommodate. Visitors opting to walk are encouraged to carry long sticks to beat away packs of feral dogs that roam the streets. Joseph says that she misses her home, but she knows she may never go back. We had a oneness when we lived in Rongelap, she said of her childhood. We worked together, we ate together, we played together. That has been lost. It's terrible. And I'm going to tell you something else, and we're going to finish up, and we'll come back to this. On a part of the island that they brought her back, it is so terrible, y'all. It is so terrible. I mean, it looks like the best description that I can give when these people come in and they destroy stuff. It looks like one of the townships in Africa and one of the poor areas in Africa, although we know that the African continent has beautiful places and it's changing a lot. But there's still, overwhelming poverty in a lot of different areas that needs to be changed, right? They in the jobs that they give these people. Now, I'm going to tell you how wicked these people are. Because the island is so messed up and they can't go back. The areas that they took over, the areas that these Caucasians took over on these other islands, right? Beautiful golf courses, and they have beautiful homes on this island and so forth, and country club life and living well and all. What they do, I'm gonna tell you how wicked these people are. What they do, they get these people, they send a ferry, right? They send a ferry to the island where they live in slums. After which, of course, they can't go back to the island where they once from because, obviously, of the devastation. They send a ferry to pick these people up, to come service the golf course, clean up the golf course and, the bathrooms or whatever, and to work in these low level jobs where they pay them nothing, right? And then they ferry them back over to their slums. Isn't that some shit? And I'm gonna when we continue, and we continue this episode, we come back with another segment. We're gonna talk about that. Isn't that something though? And they'll be the people say, well, we didn't drop the bomb. We didn't drop. But you're enjoying the island that is not yours by disposing and annexing other people out of what is theirs. Okay, the legacy of the testing. Did I read that yet? I don't think I did. Program is most evident on a toll that took the brunt of the United States late-stage nuclear detonations before an international ban on atmospheric testing in 1960. A string of 40 islands to the west of Bikini Aerotac was once a postcard, perfect ring of coral reefs, while sand beaches and I read that already. Coconut trees where roughly 450 dry EGB, the two clans that lived in the atoll gather breadfruit. Yeah, I read that. Which they can't do anymore because of, Between 1948 and 1958, the U.S. military detonated 43, listen to this, and I probably read that as well, but I'll read it again. 43 atomic bombs here. After agreeing to a 1958 temporary moratorium on nuclear testing with the United Kingdom and the Soviet Union, and the U.S. began using the atoll as a conventional and bioweapons testing ground for the next 18 years. They were dropping bombs there for the next 18 years. The U.S. shot ballistic missiles at it from California, tested virulent forms of bacteria on its islands, and detonated a series of other large conventional bombs in the lagoon. In 1972, after the U.S. had nearly exhausted its military interests in the region, it invited the leaders of Aerotac back to see the atoll for the first time since 1948. They invited them back. Ain't that some damn nerve? According to the Department of Energy report of the event, the Aerotac leaders were deeply gratified to be able to visit their ancestral homeland, but they were mortified by what they saw. The islands were completely denuded. Photos show an apocalyptic scene of windswept, deforested islands with only the occasional coconut tree jolting up from the ground. Elsewhere, crumbling concrete structures, warped tarmac roads, and abandoned construction and military equipment dotted the brazen landscape. The damage they saw on that visit was the result of nearly 3 decades of U.S. military testing. The United States had detonated 35 bombs in the Marshall Islands in 112 days in 1958. 9 of these were on Aerotac Roanoke Island, with names such as Butternut, Holly, and Magnolia. The bombs were detonated in the sky, underwater, and on top of the island. Underwater, y'all. They was doing it under the water, too. I'm going to stop there. Just really, wow. Crazy. I'm going to stop there. We're going to come back. Earth is crying out, I'm telling you. So much devastation in the world caused by these people. So again, we're going to be coming back. We ask that you support. Smash that button. Get in. And like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we will see you. Remember, Seth Moore again coming to you here on Anchor by Spotify. You can find us on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Podbean, Patreon, and many, many more host sites. So until the next time, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you again. Take care.